eventually be leaders, then you have a totally different way of looking at things. You have a totally different way of viewing everything. Decide your criteria now. I also try to put a lot of empathy into the election cycle. I didn't used to do this. I think I started maybe about 10 years ago. I remember that the people who are running for office are more than politicians. They're moms and dads, they're sons and daughters, they're parents. You know, they're people. They're truly people. And I want to see the best in them for that reason. I want to see that part of them and understand them. It also helps me from screaming at the TV and the radio a lot, which could happen. I avoid getting angry at the candidates whenever possible, but I have to remind myself to do that. I also avoid judging them because when I judge them, you know, when you judge somebody, it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with you. I don't want to judge candidates because I don't want to be that kind of person. I want to be a better, higher person than that. And not judging them is sometimes a bit of a challenge. I have to work at it, but I think it makes me a better me. And that's important. I don't want to stoop down to a low level. Sanctity and sanity, sanity and sanctity. Use your words. We tell kids to use their words all the time, right? Use your words. Every time you look at a news outlet or listen to a news outlet and you say, that person is an idiot. They're not, actually. They're not at all. And it says more about me if I were to do that than it says about the candidate. Every time I speak, every time you speak, we're putting energy into the world. I personally don't want to fill the world with the energy of name calling. So I lay low on that. Keeping your cool in an election year is a learned skill. I'm still learning. You're still learning, but I know we can do it. I absolutely know we can do it. When people talk about what a crazy world this is, I tend to say, yes, it is. What are you doing to make it better? What are we doing to make it better? As a society, we've decided that complaining is okay. Complaining doesn't really help anything at all. Pretty soon, you know, we're complaining about people who are complaining. We can just stop complaining and float through it a little bit differently. Sanity and sanctity. We don't have to complain about everything. Just for today, this is my challenge to you. Just for today, find something that you usually complain about and say, I'm not going to do it today. 24 hours, since we're already partway through the day. Try that for 24 hours and see if you can make the world a little bit better place. I know I sound like I'm singing Hey Jude, take a sad song and make it better, but I know we can do this because just by thinking about it, we know that we change our attitude and we know that we change what we put out into the world. And I'm willing to do that. I'm sharing it with you so that you can work on that too. Nothing cruel, nothing petty. Let's just take the high road. Let's just take the high road. It's important when the world seems crazy that we stay calm. It's an important thing to have that kind of balance. Don't add to the bad energy. If you tell me you disagree with me, why can't we just say, okay, we disagree? That would be the best way through it. And that's the best way when you're listening to political candidates as well. And set a good example. There's always someone in your life who's listening carefully to you. Spouse, kid, neighbor, whatever. Somebody's listening to you and paying attention to what you have to say. And the more that you can stay calm in what could be to others chaotic, the more calm that you're sharing with other people. And that's worth it. Have realistic expectations. It occurs to me in these last few months, especially since the primary, it occurs to me that there's a pretty good chance my candidate won't win. Yours will, or the other way around. Wherever we are on that spectrum of who we want to win any given election, there's always a chance that person won't win. If we start thinking about this now, we're better prepared. If we wait until November and then see what happens, then people turn into sort of a panic mode and a hatred mode and a chaotic mode. Let's start thinking about what happens now. When I teach transformation, when I guide those workshops that Carol mentioned, one of the most important steps in that process of uncovering your purpose is to take some authentic action. The authentic action I think we can take right now is to start considering what will happen if your favorite candidate does not win. Think about it now. Okay, this person may not win. And if that's the case, you know what could happen? It could be fill in the blank. So I want to take action by fill in the blank. It's up to you to decide what you're willing to do, but planning ahead and being prepared for it increases your sense of calm and increases your sense of empathy with other people so that we can get through this time together, no matter what happens, no matter what the outcome of the election might be. Sanity and sanctity. I also think that being an informed electorate is really important. I think that's so important. Some people get frustrated with news coverage and they decide to just turn off everything to do with the news. That just means a whole lot of people don't know what's going on. A whole lot of people don't have the facts. A whole lot of people are possibly misinformed about what's coming up in their lives in this country. So that's not really a solution. An informed electorate needs to know what's happening so that we can make good decisions, so that we can vote in a way that really does help each other, that really is for the greater good. That goes beyond the presidential election, goes beyond any congressional races, talking about issues in our own community too. You have to know what's going on in order to make good decisions. That informed electorate that we've heard about in civics classes since we were kids. It's really important, an important part of what we do. Now, there are some less than reputable news outlets. I've heard of them. I know they're out there. You know they're out there too. The thing about them is they've hired marketing people. They've hired marketing people and they're working with conspiracy theory and persuasion theory to get you to think something that may not be entirely true. So we have to keep in mind someone somewhere is often trying to promote chaos. And we have to be very careful about who we're listening to and what we're taking in. Don't want to buy into the chaos by any means. I interviewed a researcher, an author from American University in DC not too long ago. Her name is Cynthia Miller Idris, and she wrote a book called Hate in the Homeland. She was writing about the far right, and she was writing about how they use certain political tools to get people who are followers of the far right to take certain action, to believe certain philosophies and policies. And even though she was writing about the far right, I read her book and I thought, this could happen anywhere. How do I know it's not happening on the far left as well? It may very well be. The people who create chaos might be doing it in all political parties, in all around us, and we don't even realize it because we've not kept ourselves informed. So there is a matter of trying to overcome any misinformation. We really have to stay on top of our game to do that. And when I worked for Cap Radio, I would say things like that, and people would say, oh, you're just trying to build ratings. Well, I don't work for Cap Radio anymore. I'm not just trying to build their ratings. And I'm still telling you this because I think it's just that important that we stay on it, that we stay informed. I used to have to listen to 6 hours of news a day. Now I listen to 2 or 3 hours of news a day. I read it, I watch it, I listen to it. I don't consider myself all that well informed. If you want to stay really informed, just think about all of the information that you have to consume to make yourself a very good informed person. I listen for how each story affects my community. That's my priority. Some people don't do that. I was a guest on a podcast not too long ago where another guest said, I don't care anything about Ukraine. I live in Washington State. What does Ukraine have to do with me? And the host and I went, oh, well, and we tried to explain it to him. Not everyone sees that information and events and news around the world affect us in some way. So it's a good thing to look at. Listen to international news, figure out what's going on elsewhere, not only so that you know what you think about it, but so that you can figure out how it could possibly affect your world now or somewhere down the line. How will it affect you in your community? What effect does it have on you now? I also really want to advise you to find a good, reputable news source. I think I talked about this once before at Unity at the Lake. There is an organization that puts out the media bias chart. Remember those three words: media bias chart. It's a chart about how much bias is in the media. So if you Google it, you can't help but find it. It comes out about once a year, and it's a graph. It's a big graph with information and logos and names of news outlets that will give you an idea, top to bottom, how reputable they are. So the ones at the top are in a green zone. The ones that are in the middle are like, yellow and orange, we're not so sure. At the bottom, there are some that are in a red zone. They are really not reputable. And then there's the left to right. Left being very liberal, and right being very conservative. So if you want a really good, reputable news outlet that you can count on, when you look at this chart, you want to look at who's at the top and who's in the center. At the top is reputable in that green zone, but not too far liberal or conservative. That's what you would ideally look for. So you want to know who's top and center? I knew you would ask. Top and center is the Pew Research Center. They are top above any other major news source, which I thought was fascinating. The Pew Research Center comes out on top. Just below that, also in the green and pretty much centered, there's a cluster of news outlets that you've heard of. That's where CBS is, ABC, NBC. It's also where you'll find BBC and PBS and NPR. I know a lot of people think that NPR skews to the left, but it really doesn't. It just seems that way sometimes. And maybe at one time it did, but it's still top and center in a lot of ways. Forbes, by the way, is also top and center. It's in that cluster at the top. So those are just a few of the ones that you can count on. I'm not telling you which one to go to. You notice that? I'm not going to tell you which one to go to, but you can make your own decision. You can also look at some of the ones that are closer to the bottom and see if you've ever looked to them for answers, and maybe you want to reconsider that. So again, it's media bias chart. If you Google those three words, you can't miss it. And it comes out about once a year. I think it came out in February, about once a year. So it's pretty accurate and pretty timely. I wish, I wish that everyone could work in a newsroom. It's fascinating to explore politics from a newsroom perspective because we have a whole lot of best practices that prohibit us from talking about politics. We certainly can't talk about them on air. That's a code of ethics for NPR and for a lot of other news agencies. Just like I can't contribute to a political party, I can't go to a political fundraiser. All of those things are true. Also can't talk about them on air. We take it a step further in the newsroom, and we just don't talk about politics at all. So if you had walked into our newsroom when I worked there, you'd find out that people are talking about the story from the perspective of how we're going to cover it without talking about personal opinions. I worked with those people for 25 years, and I can guess their political preferences, but I really don't know them. We couldn't discuss it. We didn't discuss it. It's just not what you do in a newsroom. Now, an interesting thing happens when you're in that situation. When you realize that you cannot talk about politics, all of a sudden you understand that you don't really need to talk about politics. It's not necessary to be angry at a politician or love a politician. It's okay to go through a part of your life just listening. And that's what happens when you are on air and have to take the middle way, and you end up doing it in your personal life as well. You start to realize this is easier. This isn't chaotic. I can just take in information without opening my mouth and having to tell somebody what I think about a politician. It doesn't feel like an imposition to avoid politics. You can still be involved in it in your own way, but you don't constantly need to give an opinion about politics, as a lot of people feel that they should. It allows you to listen and ask questions and make your own decisions and stay balanced in your own life. You don't have to get angry. I'm going to repeat those because they're really nice ways to live. Listen, ask questions, make your own decisions, stay balanced. Wouldn't that be a nice way to get through this election cycle? Sanity and sanctity. About 20 years ago, I was at a public radio conference. It was in Austin, and the keynote speaker was the former governor of Texas, Ann Richards. And if you remember Ann Richards, she had striking white hair. She had a very rich Texas accent. She often wore yellow, like the yellow rose of Texas. And she was famous for what she said about President Bush. She said, "Poor George, he can't help himself. He was born with a silver foot in his mouth." You remember that. So you know she had a really good sense of humor too. What she said to the people at this public radio conference was that she understood the fact that we couldn't take sides and that we shouldn't take sides because it would erode that sense of credibility. But she reminded us that there is something that we could do. And I want to tell you about it too, because it's middle ground and it's a nice place to be. She encouraged us to join the League of Women Voters. Even though it has the word women in it, it's open to all genders. The League of Women Voters makes you active in the political process without necessarily stepping into the kind of arena that would ask you to take sides. And what a nice honor it would be to be involved in the political process in that way. Now, the key words to that story are not Ann Richards, they're not George Bush, they're not League of Women Voters. The key words are be active. You can be active without getting angry or bashing a candidate. You can be active without calling someone an idiot. There's a way to preserve that sanity and that sanctity for all of us. Before I leave you, I just want to give you a couple of more words of wisdom from those guys who were in office long before Ann Richards, Mr. Adams and Mr. Jefferson. Listen to this. From Mr. Jefferson: whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. That whenever things get so far wrong as to attract their notice, they may be relied on to set them to rights. For Mr. Adams, liberty cannot be preserved without a general knowledge among the people. And a few last words from me. It's an election year. Don't freak out. Preserve your sanity and your sanctity. It's a decision you make every day. And so it is.
I don't know if you can hear the applause, but everyone is. Obviously, you have a lot of food for thought. Thank you for your wisdom. I will be in touch and try and get an invitation date out to you to return in person.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Love to have that happen. Philip, is there a chance we could put the folks on Zoom on the screen so I can see who is joining us today? There they are. Oh, a number of people. Hello, thank you for joining us. Good to see you all. Thank you. Thanks, Phil. Is anyone here for the first time today? I don't think I see any new faces. How about on Zoom? We have a welcome packet we would love to share with you. And if you'd like one and you're on Zoom for the first time, please put your mailing address in the chat and we'd be happy to send you one. Also, we have a guest book out here in the front hall. If anyone would like information about our activities here at Unity, you can sign up for the website. Our Carol Merrill is standing in the back offering the book. So sign your email address and we will send you the weekly newsletter that Phyllis puts together so nicely. Our prayer chaplain, Laura, who is on Zoom today, is available for following our celebration for private prayer. If you want to let her know by putting your hand up in the Zoom, she can make arrangements with you. And now I invite you to prepare a love offering along with any prayer slips that you filled out. You folks on Zoom can donate to Unity through the lake at our website. And I invite Laura up to lead us in our love offering and blessing in prayer.
Thank you. Well, just holding whatever it is in your hand, or place your hands on your hearts, whatever it is that you're blessing Unity at the Lake with today. Money and or presence, volunteering. You are the gift. And together, let's say the offering blessing. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am grateful.
So